Welcome, lambs. Welcome to your Florida Man Friday episode. In this episode, we're talking about a man who pled not guilty to the death of his girlfriend using the big penis defense during fellatio. Before we begin, I want to remind you that this episode and all my episodes are sponsored by my lambs and Patreon, patreon.com/loveandmurder. Head on over to Patreon and become a lamb over there to get more episodes and support Love and Murder. Patreon.com/loveandmurder. Now let's get into today's Florida Man Friday. Richard Patterson, who is 65 of Margate, Florida, was arrested in November 2015 and charged with second-degree murder of his 60-year-old girlfriend, Francesca Martinez. Both Richard and Francesca lived in the Royal Palm Garden complex in Homestead, Florida. Neighbors said that the couple had been in an argument on October 25, 2015. A couple neighbors, Eddie and Christiane Pathlick, said that the couple wasn't getting along at the time and that Francesca wanted to end their relationship. Quote, 2 days before she died, they were arguing, shouting at each other. She was trying to break off the relationship. On October 28, 2015, Richard's attorney, Ken Patowitz, called authorities and told them where they can find Francesca's dead body. Now, he said he called them only hours after Richard called him, so I guess only hours after her death. When police arrived at her apartment, they found her body decomposing on a bed that was covered with a bedsheet. They also found a bag that was filled with paper towels that had blood and semen on them. During the inspection of the apartment, they found more blood, and they also found blood on one of her fingers. So it looked like to them that somebody was trying to clean up the apartment. The body was taken for autopsy, and a medical examiner determined that she had been dead for about 8 to 24 hours before the body was discovered. Now, while all this is going on, Richard is doing the rounds texting people. So he texts his daughter and apologized, saying, quote, your dad did something really bad last night. I'm so sorry. He also texted, and this is all alleged, he also texted a close family friend with a message similar to his daughter, and this one said, quote, my meds are making me crazy and I can't function. He then called his lawyer, told him what happened, and asked him to take him to a mental hospital. So his lawyer took him to a mental hospital under the Florida Baker Act, which allows the involuntary institutionalization examination of someone if there's evidence that the person had a mental illness or could potentially cause harm to him or herself or to others. So like I said in the beginning, Richard was arrested in November of 2015, and then jury selection for the trial started on May 15, 2017. And if convicted, he would be facing life in prison. The opening statement on the defense's side was that Francesca Martinez died from performing oral sex on the suspect due to the size of his penis. His lawyer also said that Richard didn't call for help because he was embarrassed and humiliated for Francesca dying from oral sex. Quote, he believes that's how she died, but he was wrong. Quote, Dr. Ronald Wright, an expert witness and former Broward County medical examiner, will testify that her death is consistent with being accidentally sexually asphyxiated during oral sex. The view by the jury is essential for them to fully understand Dr. Wright's testimony and the defense in this case. So basically, you know what he's asking for, right? On May 1st, Attorney Patowitz filed a motion asking that Richard be able to present his penis as evidence, saying that, like I said, it's essential to showing his case. If the motion were to have gone through, it would take place outside of the public view and only the judge, jury, defendant, and lawyers would be present. However, the court said no. Medical examiner Wright said that the evidence did fit with the theory that she accidentally choked during oral sex, but he actually agreed with the prosecution's expert that such death was improbable. Basically, for her to have died during oral sex, they would have needed oxygen cut off for a minimum of 30 seconds before passing out, and then air would have had to have been cut off for the next 2 to 3 minutes before the person would have died. So that's when Attorney Padowicz reminded them that, quote, that's not the way she died, but that's the way Richard Patterson thought she died. He said that Francesca could have actually passed away from a heart attack or even a stroke later on. He also said that he doesn't believe that it was Richard who was the last person to see Francesca alive, but it's when he thought that, when her body was discovered, he was the one who did this. The prosecution focused on Richard's actions, which is what I was thinking, which to them seemed to imply guilt. His ex-girlfriend, Holly Graff, also testified that he admitted to choking Francesca, but she couldn't remember how exactly he put it. The prosecution also pointed out that Richard didn't even call authorities after the incident. Instead, he texted his daughter, he texted a friend, and then he called his ex-girlfriend. And his ex-girlfriend was the one who connected him with his lawyer, Padowicz. They also played a recording of Richard speaking to his ex-girlfriend, telling her to not talk about the alleged murder, and also maintaining that he didn't want to go to jail. Now, in the end, Richard did not take the stand in his defense. When the verdict was read, Francesca's family members were in the courtroom. The jury spent 5 hours deliberating, and the verdict came back not guilty of second-degree murder. When that verdict came back, one of the family members in the court yelled out, quote, "This is not justice." Omar Andrade, which is Francesca's son, who lives in New York, said that he had met Richard on just 1 or 2 occasions not long after they had started their relationship back in the summer of 2015. He said that he was completely taken aback by this alleged murder because he never thought that Richard would be somebody who could actually do something like this. And when Richard tried to use this defense strategy of strangulation by Big Dick, basically, he really didn't like that. Quote, "It's a desperate man trying a desperate tactic. He's just trying to get off the hook." So what do you think about that? It is known that, in cases of rape, and I'm not saying this was a case of rape. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying in cases of rape or murder during sex or murder, and you see sex is associated with it, a lot of people claim the rough sex defense. So do you think this is what this was? Or do you think it was really an accidental death? So that's the poll question that I'm going to put up. Do you think Richard's dick... I'm just playing. I'm not going to really put that out. I'm going to put out the poll question is, do you really think that the death was accidental, or because of the problems they were going through, it was a purposeful murder and he's just using the rough sex defense? That is the poll that I'm going to put out in Spotify. But if you want to leave a comment instead of answer the poll, if you believe it was accidental, use the eggplant emoji. If you believe that he was guilty, use the 100% emoji. So for this, to me, what's iffy is the fact that he sent out all these texts. So saying that he wasn't the last person to see her alive, to me, is inaccurate. And he went around cleaning the apartment. And then where did the blood come from? You know what I'm saying? Where did the blood come from? Then him calling his attorney before he even called the police. I mean, I guess he would do that to protect himself, basically thinking the police would not believe that his penis was so huge that it could have murdered somebody, I guess. And they would automatically think that he murdered her. So I guess protecting himself by calling his attorney first and then having the attorney call the police. But what's with the 8 to 24 hours? Like, were you just sitting there freaking out? Like, you could... I guess he called all these people and then called his ex-girlfriend, who then told him about the attorney. The whole thing is weird to me. Saying daddy did a bad thing. I mean, I guess all of that could be jumbled into he was freaking out because he accidentally killed her. I don't know. I don't know which one it is. I don't know if he is guilty or he's not. That is just, to me, the one thing that I keep coming back to is, where did the blood come from? Because nobody said that. Where did the blood come from? So what do you think? Speaking of polls, let's look at the last Florida Man Friday polls. So last week, nobody answered the poll. What's going on? However, in a poll before that, man drives over father and murders him. Christina Bobo said, "I'd love to know the convo in the car before he started rolling over Pops. What could he have possibly said or done to deserve that? And that balls it took to go back to the scene and act like you just happened upon the murder. And he's free. They should have at least put him on house arrest." I agree. For him to go back and be like, I've never seen this place before. I was just down the road and I saw the commotion and I came over here to see what was going on. That was really ballsy. And that is all I have for you for today's Florida Man Friday. Don't forget to answer the poll or leave me a comment, and the poll results or your comment will be read on the next Florida Man Friday. See you next time. Bye.